Hello and welcome to this NCFE Provider Development Week session on Sounds Like Learning. So hello and welcome to this session. My name's Patricia Devlin and I'll be taking you through the session where we'll be looking at how music can help support throughout the curriculum. So the objectives of the session are to make learning memorable, creative and cross-curricular. So we'll be having a look at why music, then we'll move on to English and literacy, maths, PSHE and wellbeing, science and healthcare, geography and travel, history, cross-curricular, and making it inclusive, and then some useful resources at the end. So why music? Well, music boosts memory and recall, it can support emotional engagement, it aids with the language acquisition and literacy, and it bridges learning across subjects, and it can appeal to a diverse range of learners. So let's look at English and literacy. So one of the activities that you could try is the lyric gap fill. So for this activity, what you would do is you remove keywords from lyrics and play the song. Here we've got the example Someone Like You by Adele. So these skills would be listening, vocabulary and grammar. So what you would do is you play the song and then the words that were blanked out, the learner would have to listen and write down. This can also help with spelling as well. I'll give you a few moments to have a look at it. So you can see in this example, the words covered include contracted words and apostrophes for omission, homophones, punctuation, and spellings. Another activity for English and literacy is creative writing from lyrics. So using lyrics as a writing prompt. One example is Fast Car by Tracy Chapman. And the task would be to write the next chapter of the story. And these skills would include narrative writing, inference, and empathy. So next we have maths. So there will be a few different slides on maths, first looking at rhythm and counting. So activities you could use are things such as clapping rhythms for multiplication practice. You could do this for times table raps. There's a lot of examples out there on YouTube and TikTok, such as MC Grammar. Tasks, you could group rhythm games to reinforce patterns, and the skills developed would be things such as fluency, memory, and coordination. And I've got some ideas below. Some of these already exist. So the perimeter song to the tune of Twinkle Twinkle. You've got Pythagoras rap, Bidmas songs to the tune If You're Happy and You Know It. Or you could just create some of your own, such as learners writing their own maths jingles or raps for area and perimeter, or for converting fractions to decimals, or for multiplication, such as the 9 times table. Next, using data and charts from music stats. So for this activity, you would use music data from places such as Spotify to explore the frequency of certain genres or the streaming numbers and percentages, and then pie charts and favorite artists in the class. So some ideas are graph the number of streams on different platforms. You could get them to do a survey of music preferences and turn it into a bar or pie chart, or calculate averages of play counts. And this would link to data handling, statistics and graphs. And for music, it would link to music industry and the student interests. Continuing with maths, we've got songs with numbers. So this would be songs with maybe hidden maths in the lyrics. So activities could include analyze song with lyrics with numerical references and ask learners to interpret, estimate or question them. So some songs that you could use are When I'm 64 by the Beatles, One Metallica, or 500 Miles from the Proclaimers to estimate speed, distance and time. So just some ideas for activities. For example, for 500 miles, you could calculate the distance and time at a walking speed. So it's using lyrics as maths and word problems. These next activities are useful for PHSE and wellbeing, and it's using music for emotional literacy. So this activity would reflect on personal experiences through music. The example that I've chosen is This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. And the task would be to write or share about identity and self-worth. And the skills would be looking at self-expression and emotional awareness. And you can see there are 3 activities on the side there. So the first one, link to the song This Is Me, read through the lyrics, and get your learners to highlight or underline words or phrases that stand out. And then think about the following questions. What emotions do the lyrics express? Which lines do you relate to personally and why? And what is the overall message of the song? The next activity would be personal reflection, and you could get your learners to write a short paragraph responding to these prompts, such as how do you feel when you listen to the song? What does the phrase "this is me" mean to you? Or describe a time when you felt proud to be yourself. Extending this further, you could become creative and imagine you writing your own anthem that celebrates who you are, and get them to write a short verse or chorus that includes something they're proud of, a challenge that they maybe have overcome, or a message to the world. Another activity would be a group activity, and you could get learners to discuss songs that make you feel strong or empowered, and create a shared playlist titled Songs That Represent Us. And then you could go further and choose one of the songs and explain why it belongs on the list. Moving on to science. So music can be quite good with remembering facts in science. So one activity is to learn concepts through songs. For example, you've got the water cycle song or the periodic table. You could get them to listen to this and then afterwards label a diagram. And then this can help with the recall and comprehension skills. Next, looking at science and healthcare, you've got the brain on music, which would look at neuroscience and psychology. So for this activity, you'd explore how music affects the brain and emotions. So some examples for useful songs are Weightless, Marconi Union, and that's used in stress reduction studies. Again, like one of the songs I used earlier for English, you could take that and look at it for science and healthcare for its emotional impact. You've got Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, looking at complex structures and brain simulation. And an activity that you could try is to test heart rate and mood before and after listening to different genres, and then discuss those neurochemical effects of the music. Again, continuing with science and healthcare, looking at rhythm in the human body. So activities such as investigating the link between rhythm, breathing and heartbeat. So get the learners to measure their pulse before and after music. Match resting heart rates to musical tempos for beats per minute. Useful songs are Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. That's actually used for CPR training, 104 beats per minute. You've got another one, Bites the Dust. You've also got Clair de Lune, that's relaxation, slows the heart rate. Next, still staying with science and healthcare, you've got genetics, disease and health themes in songs. So using songs to introduce or reflect on genetic conditions, disease or mental health. And I've got some songs that you could explore there. So 1 in 10 by UB40, Cancer, My Chemical Romance to look at empathy and illness. I Want to Get Better by the Bleachers for mental health recovery, and Fix You, Coldplay, to look at grief, loss and resilience. And what you could do with this is you could have discussions on how accurately these topics are portrayed. And also you could ask the question, how can music help humanize and raise awareness of illness? So moving on to geography and travel. So one idea is a soundtrack to a region, so that would look at cultural geography and identity. And an activity for this would be for learners to explore a specific country or region and create a musical soundtrack to represent its culture and traditions, climate and landscapes, or political and social history. And I have got some examples there, such as West Africa using traditional drumming. South Asia, you could explore Indian classical and Bollywood music. The Highlands of Scotland, you've got that traditional folk music and bagpipes. Brazil, you've got samba, bossa nova. And you could get students to present their playlists with justifications for how each of the songs reflect the geographical feature or issues. So staying with geography and travel. Next, looking at globalization through music. So one activity would be to investigate how globalization spreads musical styles, artists, and even instruments. You've got some songs there that you could use. For example, looking at Korean culture with its soft power and influence from K-pop, or grime and rap in the UK, looking at that social geography and urban youth identity. You could also then have some discussions about what are the economic and geopolitical implications of musical exports. So, looking at geography and travel from climate change and environmental awareness in songs, one activity would be to analyse songs that tackle climate or environmental themes and then discuss the geographical issues raised, such as things as pollution, climate change, deforestation, and climate justice. And some useful songs are Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, Earth Song by Michael Jackson, and After the Gold Rush, Neil Young. Further extensions to this activity could be learners write their own eco songs or soundscape using field recordings from nature, such as the rain, wind, and bird song. Next, we'll take a look at history. So, looking at historical events told through song. So, one activity would be to use ballads and narrative songs that tell stories from the past. And then we can discuss what songs can tell us about people, emotions, opinions, and memory. I've got some examples listed. So the band played Waltzing Matilda. We've got Zombie by the Cranberries. And what the learners could do was choose songs, research the historical events, and analyse how accurately or emotionally it portrays it. Another example for history is Britain in the 20th century through music, and having a focus on post-war Britain, social change in the 60s, and youth culture in the 1980s. So songs, you've got songs by decades there. So I've gone from the 1940s all the way to the 1990s. And an activity could be for learners to create a soundtrack to social change timeline. And each learner picks a decade, choosing a song and explains how it reflects that era. So again, for history, looking at protest music and social change. So having that focus on civil rights, Vietnam War, suffragette movements, or 1980s Britain. So an activity could be to analyse the lyrics and context of protest songs and discuss how they reflect, respond to, or even influence political or social movements. There's some songs listed there for you to have a look at. But one task could be for learners to annotate the lyrics, research the context, and present how the song ties into the events. Here are some cross-curricular project ideas. So, for example, you could create a music video on a chosen topic, for example, recycling or a historic event. Skills that you could develop are research, script writing, collaboration, ICT, and creativity. And you could use tools such as iMovie, Canva to help create the project. Music can help things become inclusive. Use diverse music genres and cultures, encourage students' song choices, include movement and visual elements, and scaffold language and tasks for EAL and SEND learners. And some top tips for success using music within the curriculum. So preview any lyrics and check the content. Set clear learning objectives. Connect activities to real life and reflect and adapt based on the learner responses. Some useful tools you might find helpful if you are going to use music throughout the curriculum. So websites such as the BBC Teach, Lyrics Training or Out of the Arc, apps such as Spotify, Chrome, Music Lab and GarageBand, or platforms such as YouTube, for example, their educational playlists. So thank you very much for listening and I hope you found that useful. It was a quick run through, but hopefully give you some ideas on how to use music in the curriculum. Thank you.